So in this video, I wanted to talk about some of the interesting discussions and comments that I have in my videos, especially about characters like Hestia, Freya, and of course Ais. And so the first one I'll talk about, and this won't be containing any spoilers itself, merely just discussing in general about these characters. But looking at Ais, one of the things that I see, especially with the newest season, is people saying that Ais is useless because she was never there to assist Bel during his most dire needs. And to that, I do feel like some people forget, that are anime-only fans, that there is side stories that involve Ais called the Sword Princess, and that Sword Princess side story goes into Loki's familiar, their stories, their dilemmas going on, and the world is a lot bigger than just Bel himself. Now, Bel is of course the big grand hero of the story, or one of the big heroes. I see him as the main hero, but he is one of the heroes. There are other heroes, Ais is one of those, but Bel is the main one. But the story doesn't just evolve around Bel. Bel is not the center of the entire universe. There are other sort of orbits, I guess, in a way of putting it, is that Ais has her own story. There are major events going on with her and her backstory and Loki's familiar and a lot of the other things that they're dealing with. So there are things going on with them, there's things going on with Bel, there are always these sort of moving pieces going around. And so I don't think it's really fair to look at the current season of the anime and go, well, Ais wasn't there for Bel, so she's useless. I think that's very disingenuous, because of the fact that there are many other story plots going on. And that's one of the things that I really do love about the author, is that he has this way of creating such a vast and big world in such a small space, because again, it is just a city. Now, sometimes they do leave the city and do little things outside of the city, but not that often. I'd love to see that more often, and that's something that's possibly been hinted at. But it is one of those where I'm very impressed that they do so much, and they are able to do so much in a city, and then of course in the actual dungeon itself. I think it's really amazing how the writer has done that. But you've got to remember that Bel's journey is not Ais's journey. Ais has her own journey, and their journeys do intertwine quite regularly, but it's not something that's constantly happening. It's not like Ais is literally sitting outside Bel's door waiting for him to go into the dungeon so that she can just stand in the shadows and wait for him to need rescuing. At that point, I do feel like people kind of treat Ais as like a mother to Bel, where, oh, the moment Bel's in trouble, she needs to be there to protect him. There are other people there as well that are meant to be supporting Bel and helping Bel, and Ryu is one of those, a major character that is a supporting character for Bel as he learns and grows as an individual. There are others as well. Hestia is one of those. I see some people saying that Hestia is useless. I do feel like, again, just personal opinion, I do feel like the anime doesn't do the best job with her in some of the previous seasons, but I feel like if they stick to how they're doing things now, I think things will be much better if they stick as loyal as possible. But I do like Hestia. I see her as a really good motherly type figure. There can be a little bit of a roadblock when it comes to Bel's romances, and I think sometimes she does impede on his personal life, but I do feel like she is a very big supporting pillar in helping Bel on his journey, and she's always there to help him and be there. And it's not like she actually stops him from wanting to do things that he's very driven on, like for example the Xenos. I mean, she could have put her foot down and said, no, this is too risky, I don't want to stir the pot too much, no, we're not going to help the Xenos. But she didn't. She went with Bel on that pathway because she knew that that's what Bel wanted to do, and she sees that that is the right path. And that's what I do really love about it. Now, as far as Freya goes, Freya is an amazing character when it comes to stirring the pot. She has helped Bel quite a lot, and in ways that I don't think people remember. For example, Bel learning magic. That was Freya's fault. I mean, that book was there. She made sure it was there. Freya has been there throughout the journey to steer Bel in certain directions. Now, whether you agree if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it has definitely helped Bel become a stronger and stronger and stronger hero. He has defied the gods and the goddesses by being there to always rise above their challenges or their little trickeries that they put out. So I feel like those characters do play a very important role in the story. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be there when Bel is out there. Like, I don't think they have to be there 24/7. Now, Hestia, a little bit different, because Hestia is, of course, the goddess for Bel itself, so their lives are very much heavily intertwined, but even then, Hestia does do her own things as well, where she needs to take her own path because of the fact that she is a goddess. There are some things that Bel can't be part of, where she interacts with certain gods and goddesses, where Bel, is just not prevalent there because it's not of anything that he needs to worry about, or it's not something that he can really impact himself. So I think that's one thing about Hestia. She does have her own little paths that she takes, and that falls back to my previous point. It's why I love the story. There are so many different things going on, different paths, but they all kind of converge multiple times throughout that long epic journey. But especially talking about Ais, I do feel like too many people just assume Ais is always going to be there side by side by Bel, and I definitely think as the story goes on, some of the bigger and bigger and bigger challenges that are going to need a bigger group effort than just Hestia and her familiar members and Bel's crew, there are going to be moments where definitely Loki's familiar will come together and they will overcome the bigger, much prevalent challenges that have been alluded at in the story, which is to do with the big quest. I think that's where you'll kind of see an Avengers kind of moment where everyone comes together to work together to overcome the biggest of challenges. But there are many other smaller challenges that they will all deal with individually. And that's why, of course, a lot of people always recommend to me to play the mobile game, which I just don't get the time to do because it's just, I have limited time in a day to be able to do certain things. But it is a good idea that if I had the time, I would play the mobile game. And there are many little side stories in there as well to do with other characters, as well as additional stuff for Bel. So it's just one of those where I think you look at the light novels and all the side stories, and you look at the mobile game, which is canon, and you add all those stories together, there's a lot more that the anime does not even cover. And I do hope, as I've mentioned, and I sound like a broken record, that I do hope Sword Princess does get a season 2 and they stick to the source material rather than it being more of a recap for the main story, because I want people to experience Ais the way she's meant to be experienced and understand her backstory, understand the character development and the interactions that she has with her other familiar members. Because I think once people experience that, I think people will have a better outlook of Ais. It doesn't mean that you can't still be critical. I'm just pointing out that I'd like people to see what the story is intended, because I don't think the first season for Sword Princess was done very well. That was very heavily just a recap of the original anime itself. So maybe one day we'll have to wait and see, but I definitely think DanMachi anime has still got much more to come out, because it seems to be that they're definitely very heavily invested in making sure that that gets a full adaptation. Whether that ends up being true or not, that's just my perspective, but I definitely am enjoying how they're doing the adaptation, especially with the new recent season. And as much as I know some people say that it was a lot slower, I'm just glad that it stuck as close to the source material as possible and allowed us to have that epic journey. And it allows Bel to also have meaningful connections with other characters as well, rather than it just only being about Ais and Bel. It is nice to see other girls and other male characters have their moments to shine in the spotlight as well. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts? Who are your favorite characters, and why do you like each of the individual characters? For me, it is hard to pick my favorites because there are so many good characters and they all contribute in different ways, whether as supporting or power wise or just comedic wise or just a little bit of fan service. They all have their own charm to them. So again, love to know your thoughts. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.